3 men storm into the forge, dust swirling in their wake as the wooden door slams against the wall. Their leader, broad-shouldered with a burn scar twisting across his jawline, picks up a newly tempered hunting knife and tests the edge against his thumb. "Not bad," he sneers, glancing at the silent blacksmith. "The name's Malcolm Reed. They call me Mal for a reason." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. His laugh is sharp as the blade he holds. "Word is you're the best ironworker this side of the Mississippi. What they don't mention is how you're just a mute coward hiding from the world." Behind him, his companions chuckle, unaware they've just insulted the deadliest marksman the frontier has ever known. The rhythmic clang of hammer striking iron echoes across the valley of Oak Hollow, a sound as constant as the river flowing alongside. The town's weathered buildings, in a place where violence lurks beneath civility like a knife beneath a tablecloth, one man thought he could bury his past beneath the sparks of his forge. But some legends can't stay buried forever. The morning. Sun casts long shadows across Oak Hollow's main street as Nathaniel Forge's hammer strikes true against glowing metal. The methodical pounding from his blacksmith shop has become as familiar to the townspeople as the church bells on Sunday. Sweat glistens on his weathered face as he shapes what will become a plow blade, his skilled hands revealing nothing of their deadly accuracy with firearms. "Mr. Forge! Mr. Forge!" Thomas Bailey bursts through the workshop door, his 13-year-old enthusiasm cutting through the steady rhythm of metalwork. "The Carson gang! They've taken over the Henderson Ranch! Sheriff says they've got at least a dozen men." Nathaniel's hammer pauses mid-strike, his grey eyes lifting briefly before resuming their work. A muscle tightens in his jaw, but his expression remains impassive. "That's Sheriff Collins's concern," he finally says, his voice rough from disuse. "Hand me that bucket of water, would you?" Thomas, eager to please the man who's become something of a reluctant mentor, scrambles to help. But they say Victor Carson himself is leading them, 15 armed men with repeating rifles. The hot metal hisses as Nathaniel submerges it, steam rising around his scarred hands. Those scars tell stories of precision and violence he'd rather forget. "Every town has its troubles, boy," he says quietly. "Ours is lacking in horseshoes and plow blades." He gestures to the pile of unfinished work. "Speaking of which, your father's wagon wheel rim should be ready by sundown." The morning progresses with the usual parade of townspeople seeking Nathaniel's services. Martha Oakley, the hotel owner, needs her brass railings repaired. Old Jacob Freeman brings in a broken axe handle, his knowing eyes lingering on Nathaniel longer than necessary. Each customer brings whispered gossip about the Carson gang, but Nathaniel keeps his head down, focused on his craft. It's nearly midday when the real trouble walks in. "I need modifications to these," Mal Reed announces, dropping 3 revolvers. Onto the workbench. The metal clatters against wood, sending tools jumping. Nathaniel wipes his hands slowly on his leather apron. "I don't do firearms." Reed's eyebrows rise in mock surprise. "Didn't ask what you prefer, Smith. I'm telling you what you're going to do." He taps one of the revolvers. "Need these triggers lightened. Make 'em hair triggers. Carson says money's—" No object. The workshop falls silent, save for the crackle of the forge. Nathaniel stands perfectly still, his breathing measured. When he speaks, his voice carries the chill of mountain winter. "I said, I don't do firearms. Try Wilsonville. There's a gunsmith there who—" Reed's hand shoots out, gripping Nathaniel's shoulder hard enough to bruise. "Wasn't asking, mute man. Carson wants it done by tomorrow noon." Something shifts in Nathaniel's eyes, a darkness surfacing like a predator from deep water. Thomas, who had been sweeping in the corner, feels a sudden urge to step back, though He couldn't explain why. "Take your hand off me, Mr. Reed." Each word falls like a forge hammer. Reed squeezes harder, leaning in until his scarred face is inches from Nathaniel's. "Or what, Smith? You'll hammer me to death?" Nathaniel moves with a speed that defies his size. His elbow strikes Reed's sternum with surgical precision, followed by a lightning-quick blow to the throat. Before Reed's companions can draw their weapons, Nathaniel has their leader bent backward over the anvil, his hammer hovering inches from the man's face. "I said, I don't do firearms," he repeats, each word precise as a bullet's path. "Now take your business elsewhere." Reed's men draw. Their pistols, but a new voice cuts through the tension. "Everything all right here, Nathaniel?" Sheriff Collins stands in the doorway, one hand resting casually on his holstered gun. His deputy, young Billy Hawkins, flanks him with barely contained excitement. Nathaniel releases Reed, who scrambles up, face red with rage and humiliation. "This ain't over, Smith," he snarls, backing toward the door. "Nobody refuses the Carson gang. Nobody." After they leave, Sheriff Collins studies Nathaniel with concern. "You just made some dangerous enemies, old friend." Nathaniel returns to his forge, but his hands tremble slightly as he lifts the hammer. "They were already enemies, James," he says quietly. "They just didn't know it yet." That evening, as Nathaniel closes his shop, he finds Elizabeth Winters waiting outside. The schoolteacher's usually composed demeanor is troubled, her intelligent eyes searching his face. "I heard about what happened. The whole town's talking." "People. Talk," Nathaniel replies, securing the heavy door. "It'll pass." Elizabeth steps closer, her voice dropping. "These men, Nathaniel, they're different. Victor Carson isn't just another outlaw. Samuel Bradley from the railroad is backing them. They're not just thugs, they're an army with financial backing." Nathaniel's eyes drift to the distant mountains, painted purple by the setting sun. For a moment, something like longing crosses his face. Or perhaps it's regret. "Every army has its weakness, Miss Winters." He tips his hat and turns to leave. But her words stop him. "I saw you at the shooting contest last spring," she calls after him. "You never picked up a gun. But you corrected young Billy's stance without saying a word. You told him about controlling his breathing between heartbeats." Her voice carries in the evening air. A blacksmith doesn't know things like that. He doesn't turn back. "Good night, Miss Winters." In his small cabin behind the shop, Nathaniel lights a lamp and moves to a trunk he hasn't opened in years. The key's weight is familiar in his hand, despite all this time. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, lies a gun belt. The leather is worn but immaculately maintained, the holster holding a custom-made Colt revolver that seems to gleam in the lamplight. Beside it rests a brass telescope sight, a piece of engineering far beyond the typical frontier weapon. "Hello, old friend," he whispers, running his fingers along the engraving on the barrel. An inscription reads, "To NF, the silent shot, never miss your mark." The nickname echoes in his memory. The silent shot, once the most feared marksman in 3 territories, a man who could hit a playing card edge-on at 300 yards, a man who disappeared after the Cottonwood Springs massacre. Seems like Oak Hollow is about to learn why they once called him the silent shot. Dawn barely touches the Arizona sky when the first gunshot rings out. Nathaniel's eyes snap open, his hand already moving to the revolver he'd left on his bedside table. More. Gunfire follows, along with the sound of breaking glass and screaming from the direction of Main Street. He finds Thomas huddled behind his workshop, clutching a broken fence post like a weapon. "Mr. Forge, the Carson gang, they're shooting up Mrs. Oakley's hotel. They've got people trapped inside." "Get inside," Nathaniel orders, ushering the boy into his workshop's back room. "Lock the door. Don't come out until I call for you." The scene on Main Street is chaotic. 3 of Carson's men are taking pot shots at the hotel windows while townspeople scatter for cover. Inside, he can hear Martha Oakley shouting defiance. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us now. Back to the story. Sheriff Collins and Deputy Hawkins are pinned down behind an overturned wagon, unable to get clear shots. Nathaniel moves like a shadow between buildings, his presence unnoticed in the mayhem. Old instincts surge back, counting shots, noting positions, identifying threats, but the revolver stays hidden under his long coat. Not yet. "Come on out, Martha." Mal Reed's voice carries over the gunfire. "Carson just wants to talk business. About your property. The railroad's offering fair market value. Tell Carson he can go to hell." Martha's accent thickens with anger. "This hotel belonged to my father and his father before him." A bullet splinters the doorframe near her head, and Nathaniel's jaw tightens. Still moving unseen, he positions himself behind the gunman. His hands itch for his Colt, but 20 years of discipline hold firm. There might still be a way to end this without revealing himself. He picks up a loose horseshoe from a hitching post and weighs it in his hand. The first throw catches one gunman in the back of the head, dropping him instantly. Before his companions can react, the second horseshoe strikes true, and another man falls. The third spins around, gun raised, but Nathaniel is already moving. The skills that once made him legendary now serve a different purpose as he disarms the man with brutal efficiency. "The Smith!" the last standing gunman yells before Nathaniel's fist silences him. Reed emerges from cover, his scarred face twisted, in fury. "Should have minded your own business, old man." His gun clears leather with impressive speed, but Nathaniel is already moving. Two shots ring out simultaneously. Reed's bullet throws splinters from the post behind Nathaniel's head, while Nathaniel's shot sends Reed's gun spinning from his hand. "That's enough!" Sheriff Collins' voice booms across the street. He and Deputy Hawkins have finally found their opening, moving in with weapons drawn. "Reed, you and your boys are under arrest." Reed cradles his bleeding hand, eyes burning with hatred. "You've got no idea what you just started, Smith. When Victor Carson hears about this, tell him to come see me himself." Nathaniel interrupts, his voice carrying a deadly calm that makes even the sheriff glance at him sharply. "I'll be in my shop." As Collins and Hawkins round up the wounded. "Gang members?" Martha approaches Nathaniel, her normally immaculate appearance disheveled from the shootout. "Where did you learn to throw like that? And that shot, I've never seen anything like it." "Lots of practice," he deflects, but she's not fooled. Nobody moves like that from throwing hammers. She studies him with new interest. "And nobody makes that shot without years behind a trigger." Before Nathaniel can respond, Elizabeth Winters hurries over, her normally pristine dress dusty from taking cover. "Is everyone all right?" Her eyes widen. "Nathaniel, you're bleeding." He touches his shoulder, surprised to find Reed's shot had grazed him after all. "Just a scratch." "Let me help," she insists, but he's already walking away. "Need to check on Thomas," he calls over his shoulder. In truth, he needs to be alone. The familiar weight of the revolver in his hand had awakened something he'd fought 20 years to bury. The precise aim, the calculated moves. They came back as naturally as breathing. He had hoped those days were behind him, but as he looks at his bloodied knuckles, he knows the past is never truly gone. It just waits for the right moment to return. The afternoon wears on as Nathaniel tends to his wounded shoulder, the gash deeper than he'd let on. As he cleans the wound, each dab of the alcohol-soaked cloth brings flashes of memory, other wounds, other fights. His thoughts drift to events that shaped the man he'd become and the one he'd tried to leave behind. Thomas watches from his perch on a workbench stool, eyes wide with newfound admiration. "That was amazing, Mr. Forge. Where did you learn to fight like that? Can you teach me to shoot like you did?" Nathaniel's expression darkens. "What I can teach you is how to fix Martha's broken window frame," he replies firmly, handing the boy a length of oak. starts sanding this down. But Thomas, like all curious boys, is not easily deterred. Everyone's talking about how you knocked down Mal Reed with just one shot. Hit his gun right out of his hand. Sheriff Collins says nobody in the territory could make that shot. The sheriff talks too much, Nathaniel mutters, wincing as he bandages his shoulder. A knock at the workshop door interrupts Thomas's next question. Jacob Freeman enters, carrying a basket covered with a checkered cloth. My Sarah thought you might need some supper, the elderly man says, placing the basket on the workbench. Seeing as you likely won't be heading to Martha's for your usual. Tonight, Nathaniel nods gratefully. Thank her for me. Jacob turns to Thomas. Your mother's looking for you, boy. Best head home before she worries herself sick. After Thomas reluctantly departs, a heavy silence fills the workshop. Jacob watches Nathaniel with knowing eyes as the blacksmith continues organizing his tools, methodically hanging each hammer in its proper place. Saw what you did today, Jacob finally says, settling onto a stool. Reminded me of stories I heard years back about a marksman they called the Silent Shot, man who could shoot the flame off a candle from 50 paces without disturbing the wick. Man who disappeared after Cottonwood Springs. Nathaniel's hand freezes momentarily on the handle of a ball-peen hammer. Cottonwood Springs was a lifetime ago. Past has a way of finding us, Jacob observes, running a weathered hand along his. Greybeard, especially when it wears a burn scar like Reed's. At Nathaniel's sharp look, Jacob continues, I recognize that man, though he was younger then. He rode with the Wallace gang at Cottonwood, one of the few who survived that day. Nathaniel's blood runs cold. After 20 years, the circle was closing. You seem to know a lot, Jacob. Know enough to understand why a legend might want to disappear, become just another Smith. Jacob heads toward the door, pausing at the threshold. But legends don't die easy, Nathaniel. Sometimes they're needed. After Jacob leaves, Nathaniel extinguishes the forge and retreats to his cabin. Despite his exhaustion, sleep refuses to. And come, the events of the day, Jacob's words, and Elizabeth's perceptive questions all swirl in his mind like leaves caught in a dust devil. He lights a lamp and opens the trunk again, pushing aside the gun belt to reveal the contents beneath, a silver-framed daguerreotype of a young woman holding a baby, yellowed newspaper clippings with headlines about the Silent Shot's exploits, and a tarnished marshal's badge. At the bottom lies a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with precise notes on distances, wind conditions, and bullet trajectories. Nathaniel takes out the daguerreotype, his fingers tracing the outline of the woman's face. I'm sorry, Anna, he whispers. I thought I'd left it all behind. Morning finds him still at his table, plans and calculations spread before him. The tranquility of dawn is broken by the sound of approaching horses. Nathaniel's hand moves instinctively to his revolver before he recognizes Sheriff Collins' voice. Calling his name. Nathaniel, you up? Got news you need to hear. Collins looks like he hasn't slept, his typically neat appearance disheveled. Deputy Hawkins stands behind him, fidgeting nervously with his hat. Riders came in from Wilsonville last night, Collins says without preamble. Carson's gathering men, lots of them. Word is he's offering double pay to anyone who'll join him. How? Many? Nathaniel asks, his voice steady. 20, maybe more, and they're not just saddle tramps. Former soldiers, bounty hunters, gunmen with reputations. Nathaniel nods slowly. When? 2 days, according to my source. They're waiting on a shipment of new Winchester repeaters coming on the eastbound train. Collins studies his friend's face. This isn't just about Martha's Hotel anymore, is it? No, Nathaniel admits. It's about Cottonwood Springs. Deputy Hawkins blinks in confusion. The massacre. That was nearly 20 years ago. What's that got to do with... Understanding dawns on Collins's face. You were there. You're him, aren't you? The Shadow. The Silent Shot. That name doesn't belong to me anymore, James. Maybe it should, Collins responds quietly. because we're going to need him." After they leave, Nathaniel walks through town, seeing it with new eyes, not as his sanctuary, but as a battlefield. He notes defensive positions, sightlines, vulnerabilities. Unlike when he first arrived 5 years ago, he now knows these people. Martha with her stubborn pride, Thomas and his endless questions, Jacob and his quiet wisdom. Elizabeth. He finds her at the schoolhouse, already preparing lessons despite the early hour. She looks up as he enters, her surprise quickly giving way to concern as she notes his grim expression. "You've heard about Carson." "News travels fast," he responds, moving to the window to survey the street beyond. "The children are frightened, Nathaniel. Their parents too." Elizabeth sets down her chalk. "Sheriff Collins has called a town meeting, and for noon, he says we may need to evacuate. That won't stop Carson. He'll just follow." Nathaniel turns to face her. "Elizabeth, there's something you need to know about me. That you're the marksman they called the Silent Shot." A small smile plays at her lips at his startled expression. "I grew up with my nose in books, Nathaniel. When I first suspected, I wrote to my father. He sent old newspaper accounts. Then you know what happened at Cottonwood Springs." She nods, solemnly. "I know the official account. 37 men died that day. The Wallace gang had terrorized 3 counties. No one could stop them until a mysterious marksman picked them off one by one. There's more to the story," Nathaniel says, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Victor Carson was Jeremiah Wallace's business partner. He wasn't there that day, but he swore revenge on the man who destroyed his operation. You, me." Nathaniel closes his eyes briefly. "Carson doesn't just want land for the railroad, Elizabeth. He wants the man who killed his partner." Elizabeth crosses the room to stand before him. "So it's not the town he's after. It's you." "I should leave," Nathaniel says quietly. "Draw him away from Oak Hollow. And what happens when he catches you? When it's 1 against 20? Her hand touches his arm. "The town meeting isn't about evacuation, Nathaniel. It's about defense. James has been organizing men since dawn. The noon meeting at the church reveals divisions among the townspeople. Some, like Martha and Jacob, advocate standing their ground. Others favor appeasing Carson with land sales. The railroad's offer is fair, Samuel Bradley insists, his banker's vest straining over his ample stomach. Why risk bloodshed over property values? Because it starts with Martha's hotel, Jacob counters, and ends with all of us under Carson's thumb. The debate rages until Nathaniel steps forward. The room falls silent as he walks to the front, uncomfortably aware of all eyes upon him. "Carson isn't interested in land deals," he begins, his voice carrying despite its quietness. "He's using the railroad as cover for a personal vendetta. Against me." Murmurs ripple through the crowd as he continues. 20 years ago, I was a U.S. Marshal working the Western Territories. I specialized in tracking and eliminating threats that ordinary lawmen couldn't handle. "The Silent Shot," someone whispers from the back. Nathaniel nods grimly. "At Cottonwood Springs, I ended Jeremiah Wallace's reign of terror. Victor Carson was Wallace's silent partner, supplying guns and information. Carson swore to hunt down the marksman who destroyed his operation. So you came here," Martha realizes, "changed your name, became a blacksmith. I thought I'd left it all behind." Nathaniel surveys the faces before him, some shocked, others calculating, a few angry. "I was wrong, and now I've brought this danger to your door. For that I apologize." He takes a deep breath. "Those who wish to leave should do so now. Take the eastern road to Benton. You should be safe there. And those who stay," Elizabeth asks from her seat near the front, "will need to prepare for a fight." Nathaniel's gaze hardens. Carson doesn't take prisoners, and he doesn't leave witnesses. The next hours bring a flurry of activity as Oak Hollow transforms. Those who choose to stay, more than Nathaniel expected, work to fortify the town. Collins organizes defensive positions. Martha's hotel becomes a fortress, its upper windows offering commanding views of the main approaches. The livery stable, with its thick wooden walls, becomes an armory. Nathaniel finds himself in his element, instructing townspeople on barricades and fields of fire with a precision that comes from bitter experience. Young Billy Hawkins watches in awe as Nathaniel disassembles, cleans, and reassembles the town's motley collection of firearms, making adjustments to improve their accuracy. "How do you know all this?" Billy asks, as Nathaniel modifies the sights. "On his carbine. Same way you learn any craft," Nathaniel replies, handing back the weapon. "Years of practice and too many mistakes." As evening falls, Nathaniel returns to his forge. For the first time in years, he lights it not to repair plows or fashion horseshoes, but to craft implements of war, metal caltrops to slow charging horses, improvised grape shot for Jacob's old blunderbuss, armor plates for vulnerable windows. Elizabeth finds him there, his arms black with soot to the elbows, sweat streaming down his face as he hammers a metal sheet into shape. "You should be at the schoolhouse with the others," he says without looking up. "I brought you this." She places a small, wooden box on his workbench. Inside lies a brass spyglass, tarnished but serviceable. It was my father's. He was a surveyor before he taught. Their eyes meet over the dancing flames of the forge, and something unspoken passes between them. "Why did you stay, Elizabeth? You could be halfway to Benton by now." She considers her answer carefully. "When I first came to Oak Hollow, I thought I was just passing through. A year teaching in a frontier town to earn money for university back east." Her hand brushes his, leaving a smudge of soot on her pale skin. "But this became home. These people became family." Even the silent blacksmith. The question is barely audible over the hiss of hot metal in water, especially him. Elizabeth's smile is tinged with sadness. "Though I'm beginning to think I never really knew him at all." Nathaniel sets down his hammer. "You knew the part of me that matters most, Elizabeth. The rest was just a ghost I thought I'd buried." And now, through the open door, they can see the townspeople moving with purpose, boarding windows, distributing weapons, preparing for the storm to come. No longer strangers united by geography, but allies bound by choice. "Now," Nathaniel says quietly, "we find out if that ghost still remembers how to haunt." A blood-red dawn breaks over Oak Hollow the next morning. Nathaniel stands on the roof of Martha's hotel, surveying the landscape through Elizabeth's brass spyglass. The town below him stirs, with nervous energy as people finish last-minute preparations. From this vantage point, he can see the rolling hills that surround the valley, the winding dirt road that serves as the town's only proper connection to the outside world, and the dense copse of cottonwoods that borders the eastern approach. Those trees trouble him. Perfect cover for an advance party. "See anything?" Sheriff Collins joins him, rifle in hand. "Nothing yet." Nathaniel collapses the spyglass. "But they'll come from the east, using those trees for cover. Carson's too smart for a frontal assault." Collins nods grimly. "We've got 8 men who can shoot worth a damn, another dozen with hunting experience. The rest," he trails off, "will do what needs doing." Nathaniel finishes. "Fear makes men unpredictable, but so does defending home." A shout from below draws their attention. "Deputy!" Hawkins races up Main Street, his young face flushed with exertion. Nathaniel and Collins descend to find 3 dust-covered men dismounting before the hotel. Frank Wilkinson, the eldest, steps forward to grasp Collins' hand. "Heard you folks were expecting trouble. Thought you might need some help." Relief washes over Collins' face. "You're a sight for sore eyes, Frank. How many men did you bring?" "Just us 3 for now," Frank responds. "But we sent word to the other spreads. More might come. A flicker of hope ignites in the town. The Wilkinsons are known as tough but fair ranchers and formidable in a fight. Their presence might tip the scales. As they discuss defensive positions, a commotion erupts near the general store. Nathaniel arrives to find Bradley, the banker, arguing heatedly with Jacob and Martha. This is madness. Bradley's face is flushed red beneath his bowler hat. You're going to get everyone killed over one man's past. We're standing against tyranny, Martha retorts, her normally perfect coiffure disheveled from a night of preparation. Carson won't stop with me. You know that, Samuel. What I know, Bradley hisses, is that your precious Blacksmith has been lying to all of us for years. How many more secrets is he keeping? Nathaniel steps forward, his quiet presence immediately drawing all eyes. None that matter now, Mr. Bradley. The banker sputters but falls silent under Nathaniel's steady gaze. Anyone who wishes to leave still can, Nathaniel continues, addressing the gathered crowd. Take only what you can carry. Head west toward Benton. You should reach it by nightfall if you leave now. Bradley straightens his vest. I intend to, and I suggest the rest of you come to your senses and do the same. He turns to the crowd. This isn't our fight. It became our fight when Carson's men shot up my hotel, Martha says firmly. And it became mine 20 years ago, Jacob adds, his aged voice carrying surprising strength. When Wallace's gang, Carson's gang, raided my first homestead, killed my oldest boy. His revelation sends murmurs through the crowd. I recognized Reed yesterday. He was there. Bradley's resolve wavers as he looks around at the determined faces. Finally, he exhales sharply. On your heads be it then? He turns to leave, but pauses beside Nathaniel. This blood is on your hands, Forge, or whatever your real name is. As Bradley departs with 3 other families, Nathaniel watches impassively, though inside, doubt gnaws at him. Is the banker right? Should he have left, drawn Carson away? Elizabeth appears at his side, reading his thoughts with uncanny precision. Don't, she says quietly. This isn't just about you anymore. Carson represents everything that preys on frontier towns like ours, men who use violence and money to take what isn't theirs. People will die, Elizabeth. People already have. Her hand touches his arm. At least this time we choose to stand. The day advances without sign of Carson's men. By mid-afternoon, tension has stretched nerves to breaking point. Children and those unable to fight are secured in the root cellar beneath the church, while the rest maintain vigilant watch from fortified positions. Nathaniel uses the time to continue preparations. In his forge, he works with focused intensity, crafting special ammunition for his Colt, hollow-point bullets filled with materials of his own design. Thomas assists, his young hands steady despite the circumstances. Mr. Forge, the boy ventures as they work. What was it like, being the silent shot? Nathaniel's hands pause momentarily. Lonely, he finally says, and cold. Not a life to admire, Thomas. But you helped people. Stopped bad men, sometimes. Nathaniel carefully places a completed bullet in a leather ammunition pouch. But there's a cost to becoming a weapon. Part of you goes numb. You start seeing people as targets or obstacles. His eyes meet Thomas's. That's why I chose this. He gestures to the forge, creating instead of destroying. Thomas considers this. But sometimes you have to destroy to protect. Wisdom beyond your years, boy. Nathaniel manages a rare smile. Yes, sometimes you do. Their conversation is interrupted by shouts from the street. Nathaniel grabs his gun belt and rushes out to find an unfamiliar rider being helped from his horse. The man's shirt is soaked with blood from a bullet wound in his shoulder. Found him on the East Road, Frank Wilkinson explains as Doc Miller examines the wound. Says he's a prospector. Carson's men, the wounded man gasps. They've taken over the way station at Cottonwood Creek, killing anyone trying to pass through. I barely got away. Nathaniel exchanges a look with Collins. Cottonwood Creek lies 10 miles east, the last stop before Oak Hollow. How many? Collins asks. 5, maybe 6, led by a big fellow with a burn scar. The prospector winces as Doc probes his wound. They're expecting reinforcements tonight. Trains. Bringing in weapons. Reed. Nathaniel recognizes the description immediately. He's setting up an advanced position. We need to deal with this, Nathaniel tells Collins quietly. If they secure that station, they'll control the only water source between here and Benton. Can't spare many men from town, Collins replies, frowning. Don't need many, just the right ones. Nathaniel's mind is already calculating angles, approaches, timing. Frank and his brothers know the land. With them and 2 good shots, we can handle it. I'm coming, Deputy Hawkins volunteers, overhearing their conversation. I'm a fair shot. Collins looks reluctant but nods. Who else? I'll go, Jacob says, emerging from the crowd with an ancient Sharps rifle cradled in his arms. Got some unfinished business with Reed. Within the hour, they're mounted and ready to depart. Nathaniel checks his Colt one final time, the familiar weight both comforting and troubling. Elizabeth approaches as he adjusts his saddle. Promise me something, she says, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Promise me you'll remember who you are now, not just who you were. I'll come back, he answers, understanding her real concern. As Nathaniel Forge, she insists, not the ghost of the silent shot. He nods once, then swings into the saddle. The small party rides out, following Frank Wilkinson's lead, through a little-used trail that skirts the main road. As they ride, Jacob sidles his horse alongside Nathaniel's. Been a long time since you rode out like this, the older man observes. Too long, Nathaniel admits, and not long enough. You know, Jacob says conversationally, I was there that day at Cottonwood Springs, not in the town. I was camped in the hills, saw the whole thing unfold. At Nathaniel's sharp look, he continues, 37 men, each taken down with a single shot, some at distances I wouldn't have believed possible if I hadn't seen it. For 2 days they searched for the shooter, never found a trace. I didn't know anyone had witnessed it, Nathaniel says quietly. That's why they called you the silent shot, not just because you never missed, but because you were a ghost, appearing and disappearing like mist. Jacob's weathered face turns serious. But that's not why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you because I saw your face afterward, through my field glass, saw what it cost you. Nathaniel remains silent. The memory of that day vivid in his mind, the weight of the rifle, the rhythmic routine of aim, fire, relocate, the mechanical precision of death delivered from unseen positions. What's your point, Jacob? My point is, that man, that ghost, he died that day too. And the man who's riding beside me now isn't him. Don't forget that. They reach a ridge overlooking Cottonwood Creek Way Station as twilight deepens. The modest wooden structure sits in a small valley, a necessary stop for travelers needing water and rest. Light spills from its windows and 5 horses are hitched outside. Through Elizabeth's spyglass, Nathaniel studies the layout. Reed and 4 others inside. 1 man on watch by the corral. He passes the glass to Frank. See that split rock on the hill behind? That's where I'll set up. Need you 3 to create a distraction from the west side once I'm in position. What about me? Hawkins asks eagerly. You'll come with me part way, then circle around to the east. When the shooting starts, anyone who runs that way will be your responsibility. As darkness falls, they separate according to plan. Nathaniel moves silently through the rocky terrain, his footsteps sure despite the darkness. Years of practice allow him to navigate by starlight alone, finding paths invisible to untrained eyes. He reaches the split rock and settles into position, extracting not his Colt, but a disassembled rifle from his saddlebags. The weapon is a custom Springfield, modified with his own improvements, a precision instrument he hasn't touched in 2 decades. His hands remember, though. They assemble the rifle with fluid grace, each component sliding into place with satisfying precision. He attaches the telescopic sight last, adjusting it for the dim conditions. Below, Reed emerges onto the station's porch, scanning the darkness as if sensing the approaching threat. Nathaniel centers the crosshairs on his chest, finger resting lightly on the trigger. One pressure and 20 years of history would close with finality. His finger tenses, then relaxes. Not yet, not from the shadows. Reed deserves to see it coming. From the west comes the planned distraction. Frank and his brothers driving a small herd of cattle toward the station, whooping and firing into the air. The sentry by the corral raises his rifle, but never gets a chance to fire. Nathaniel's shot drops him cleanly, the report of the Springfield echoing through the valley. Chaos erupts as Reed and his men pour from the station, firing wildly at the approaching Wilkinsons. Jacob Sharps cracks from his hidden position, taking down another of Reed's gang. The Wilkinsons respond with well-aimed shots from their repeating rifles. Reed, showing the cunning that's kept him alive, doesn't engage directly. Instead, he darts around the side of the station, heading for the horses. Exactly as Nathaniel predicted, Hawkins, positioned as instructed, rises from behind a water trough. "Stop right there, Reed!" The young deputy stands in the open, exposed, his revolver trained on Reed, but his inexperience evident in his stance. Reed smiles coldly and draws his gun with lightning speed. Nathaniel has only an instant to aim. His shot catches Reed's shoulder, spinning him before he can fire at Hawkins. The deputy seizes his opportunity, advancing with more courage than sense. "Drop it, Reed, you're finished!" Instead of complying, Reed lunges at Hawkins, tackling him to the ground. The deputy's gun discharges harmlessly into the air as they grapple. Reed, despite his wounded shoulder, is getting the upper hand. Nathaniel abandons his rifle and races down the slope, drawing his Colt as he runs. By the time he reaches the station yard, Reed has disarmed Hawkins and holds a knife to the young man's throat. "Drop the gun, Ghost," Reed snarls, using the other name Nathaniel had been known by. "Or I open his throat." Nathaniel slows his approach, Colt held loosely in his right hand. "It's over, Reed. Your men are down. Reinforcements won't make it past us." "You think Carson will stop coming?" "He's got an army!" Reed's voice rises with hysteria. "Should have stayed dead, Ghost. My name," Nathaniel says with quiet intensity, "is Nathaniel Forge." Reed laughs, a harsh sound like metal scraping stone. "No, it ain't. Your name is Death, just like in Cottonwood Springs." His knife presses harder against Hawkins' throat, drawing a thin line of blood. "You gonna watch this one die too, like that girl?" Something shifts in Nathaniel's expression, a coldness entering his eyes that makes even Reed falter. "Anna," Nathaniel says, his voice barely audible. "Her name was Anna, and our daughter was Emily." Understanding dawns on Reed's face. "Wallace sent me to find leverage," he whispers. "I didn't know they'd kill them." Nathaniel's aim doesn't waver. "I know. That's why you're still breathing." What happens next occurs with such speed that later Hawkins can't properly describe it. Nathaniel's left hand flicks forward, throwing something small that flashes in the moonlight. Reed flinches instinctively. In that split second, Nathaniel's Colt roars and Reed crumples, the knife falling harmlessly aside. Hawkins scrambles away, clutching his bleeding neck. What did you throw?" Nathaniel holsters his gun and bends to pick up a small metal object. A blacksmith's nail. "Distraction," he says simply. "Sometimes winning isn't about being faster, it's about creating an opportunity." By the time they secure the station and tend to Hawkins' wound, the last of Reed's men have been captured or killed. Frank Wilkinson examines the supplies they've seized, Winchester rifles, ammunition, and documents detailing Carson's plans. This is bigger than just your vendetta, Frank tells Nathaniel, spreading papers on the station's table. According to these, Carson's working with Bradley. They're planning to force everyone out, not just Martha. The railroad's paying triple market value, but only to them. They'd resell at 10 times the price. Bradley, Jacob spits. No wonder he was so keen for us to abandon the town. Nathaniel studies the papers. These might be enough to bring in the territorial marshal, if we can hold out long enough. Carson won't wait, Frank warns. According to this, he's moving tomorrow at dawn. Full force. Hawkins, his neck bandaged, leans forward. What about the prisoners? They say Carson has 30 men now. Leave them secured here, Nathaniel decides. We'll collect them after. His expression grows solemn. If there is an after. They ride back toward Oak Hollow under a canopy of stars, pushing their horses as hard as they dare in the darkness. The captured weapons are distributed among them, significantly improving their firepower. As they crest the final ridge overlooking the town, Frank reins in sharply. Look there, riders approaching from the south. Through the spyglass, Nathaniel, who counts at least a dozen mounted figures moving toward Oak Hollow, not from the east as expected, but from an entirely different direction. Is it Carson? Jacob asks tensely. Nathaniel adjusts the glass, trying to make out details in the moonlight. Then a smile, the first genuine one in days, touches his lips. No, he says, passing the glass to Jacob. It's help. The approaching riders are settlers from the surrounding homesteads, drawn by the Wilkinsons' messages. Farmers, ranchers, miners, ordinary people armed with whatever weapons they possess, coming to stand with Oak Hollow against Carson's threat. As they ride down to intercept the newcomers, Nathaniel feels something he hasn't experienced in 20 years, the weight of the past lightening, if only slightly. The lone wolf had found a pack worth fighting alongside, but as they enter town, together a messenger races out to meet them, his face pale with urgency. "Mr. Forge, thank God you're back." Thomas skids to a halt beside Nathaniel's horse. "It's Miss Winters. She's gone missing, and so has Bradley." "What do you mean she's missing?" Nathaniel's voice cuts through the night air, sharp as a blade. The blood from the Cottonwood Creek confrontation still stains his coat, but his focus has entirely shifted. Thomas struggles to catch his breath, his young face a mask of distress. "Miss Winters was helping organize supplies at the church. When Martha went to check on her about an hour ago, she was gone. Her horse, too." Sheriff Collins pushes through the gathering crowd. "Bradley's safe disappeared as well. Cleaned out the bank and vanished right after you left for the station." His expression darkens. "We found this in Elizabeth's desk at the schoolhouse." He hands Nathaniel a folded paper bearing the railroad company's letterhead. The message is brief but clear. "Forge, a life for a life. The woman for you. Come alone to Blackwater Gorge at midnight. No tricks, or she dies like Anna did. V.C. thee." And paper crumples in Nathaniel's tightening grip. Those around him take an involuntary step back, sensing the deadly shift in his demeanor. When he speaks, his voice has changed. Colder. Emptier. "How did Carson know about Anna?" The question isn't directed at anyone in particular, but realization dawns on several faces simultaneously. "Bradley," Martha says, her usual composure cracking. "That weasel must have been feeding Carson information all along." Explains how they knew when to hit the stagecoach. Frank Wilkinson adds grimly. "And why Bradley was so eager for us to abandon the town." Nathaniel checks his timepiece. 11:15, Blackwater Gorge is 20 minutes' ride. His eyes scan the darkened horizon, calculating. "You can't go alone," Collins protests. "It's obviously a trap." "Of course it's a trap." Nathaniel agrees, already moving toward the stables. "But if I don't go, Elizabeth dies." Jacob falls into step beside him. "Then we all go, surround the gorge, give you cover." "No." Nathaniel's tone brooks no argument. Carson will have men watching every approach. One sign of company, and he'll kill her immediately. He pauses, turning to face the assembled townspeople. I need you all here, preparing the town. Carson's main force will attack at dawn. Collins steps forward, his weathered face determined. At least let me come part way with you. You can keep these people alive. Nathaniel interrupts. That's what I need from you, James. If I don't make it back, you will. Thomas interjects fiercely. You have to. A ghost of a smile touches Nathaniel's lips as he rests a hand briefly on the boy's shoulder. Keep that faith, Thomas, but if I don't, the defense plans are in my workshop under the anvil. Frank knows enough to implement them. Minutes later, Nathaniel gallops out of town, the sound of hoofbeats quickly swallowed by the night. Behind him, Oak Hollow becomes a hive of renewed activity as the defenders prepare for what's coming. Blackwater Gorge earned its name from the dark, mineral-rich waters that carved the ravine over centuries. By day, it's an impressive geographical feature. By night, it's a black mouth in the earth, swallowing light and sound alike. Nathaniel approaches cautiously, tethering his horse a quarter-mile away and proceeding on foot. The moon disappears behind gathering clouds, limiting visibility, but also concealing his movements. He carries his Colt and a Winchester rifle taken from Reed's men, along with a small packet of specialized tools hidden in his boot. He doesn't call out or announce his presence. Instead, he moves like his old namesake, a ghost, sliding from shadow to shadow, listening more than looking. 20 years may have passed, but some skills never fade. A flicker of firelight draws his attention to a small plateau halfway down the gorge wall. He counts 4 figures silhouetted against the flames, 3 standing, 1 seated. Even at this distance, he recognizes Elizabeth's distinctive profile in the seated figure. Nathaniel circles, finding a path that allows him to approach from above. He settles behind a boulder 30 yards from the campfire, the rifle resting on a natural notch in the rock. Through the telescopic sight, he can now clearly see Elizabeth. Her hands are bound, but she appears unharmed. Beside her stands Bradley, nervously shifting his weight from foot to foot. The other 2 men are strangers to Nathaniel, Carson's hired guns undoubtedly, but of Carson himself there is no sign. You're late, Forge, a deep voice calls from the darkness behind him. Or should I call you by your real name? U.S. Marshal Nathaniel Faulkner, the legendary silent shot. Nathaniel doesn't turn, doesn't flinch. He'd expected this, sensed it even. Carson, he acknowledges quietly, 20 years is a long wait for revenge. Victor Carson steps into view, moonlight briefly breaking through the clouds to illuminate him. He's a large man, barrel-chested with a thick grey beard and the hard eyes of someone who's ordered many deaths but dealt few personally. Unlike Reed's scarred visage, Carson's face bears the marks of wealth and comfort, the face of a man who pays others to bleed for him, not just revenge, Carson corrects, keeping a respectable distance. A revolver hangs at his hip, but he makes no move toward it. Justice. You appointed yourself judge, jury, and executioner at Cottonwood Springs. Decided my business arrangement with Wallace violated your personal moral code. Your business arrangement, Nathaniel repeats flatly, included extortion, murder, and selling weapons to both sides in the Apache conflicts. The territorial governor called it high treason. Carson waves a dismissive hand. Politics, you still took it upon yourself to execute 37 men in cold blood. Not in cold blood, Nathaniel corrects. Each one was given the chance to surrender to proper authorities. Each one chose to fight. You remember that part, don't you, Carson? You were supposed to be there that day. A flicker of something, perhaps discomfort, crosses Carson's face. Business in Denver delayed me. Fortunate timing. For you, not for Anna and Emily. The names hang in the air between them, heavy with accusation. Carson sighs heavily, as if genuinely regretful. That Unfortunate incident was never my intention. Wallace acted impulsively, sending Reed to your home without my knowledge. And yet here you are, 20 years later, using the same tactic. Nathaniel finally turns to face him fully, the rifle still positioned to cover the men below. Taking an innocent woman to draw me out. Miss Winters is merely insurance. Carson counters. Unlike Wallace, I don't harm women unnecessarily. Her involvement is Mr. Bradley's contribution to our arrangement. Below, as if hearing his name, Bradley glances nervously upward. The banker can't see them in the darkness, but his anxiety is palpable even at this distance. "What do you want, Carson?" Nathaniel asks, though he already knows the answer. "Initially, just business. The railroad needs Oak Hollow's land. Then I discovered you were living there." A thin smile appears beneath his beard. "Two birds, one stone. And now I offer you a choice." Carson gestures toward the plateau below. "Surrender yourself to me. Walk down there, lay down your weapons. I'll release Miss Winters immediately, and my business with Oak Hollow returns to simple commerce. Fair market value for their properties. My word on it." "Your word," Nathaniel repeats skeptically. "My word, and this." Carson produces a document from his coat, a legally binding contract with the railroad already signed by their representatives. "The only signature missing is mine." Nathaniel studies him. "And if I refuse, then Miss Winters dies. My men attack Oak Hollow at dawn as planned. Many will die, and I'll still have you in the end." Carson shrugs. "The outcome is inevitable. The only variable is the body count." For a long moment, silence stretches between them, broken only by the distant crackle of the campfire and the soft moan of wind through the gorge. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" Nathaniel finally asks. "Because unlike Wallace, I'm a businessman. First, vendettas are expensive and messy. I prefer clean transactions." Carson holds the contract toward him. "Read it yourself." Nathaniel takes the document, angling it to catch what little moonlight filters through the clouds. The legal language seems genuine. Fair compensation for property owners, guaranteed rights of way, even provisions for establishing a proper station in Oak Hollow. "I had this drawn up before I knew who you were," Carson explains. "It represents my original intention. I'm simply offering to return to it, in exchange for me. Justice has a price. This one saves many lives." Nathaniel carefully refolds the contract. "I'll need assurances beyond your word. Elizabeth walks free before I surrender my weapons." "Agreed. And your men withdraw from the approaches to Oak Hollow tonight." Carson hesitates briefly. "Also agreed, though they'll remain camped within riding distance. Insurance against any heroic rescue attempts by your townsfolk." "One last condition," Nathaniel says, his voice hardening. "I want 5 minutes alone with Bradley." A bark of laughter escapes Carson. "Done. That weasel has outlived his usefulness anyway. Just leave enough of him breathing to testify to our agreement." They descend to the plateau together, an unlikely pair bound by a dark history. Carson's men straighten as they approach, hands moving toward weapons until Carson waves them down. Elizabeth's eyes widen at the sight of Nathaniel, fear and hope warring in her expression. "Nathaniel, don't—" "It's all right," he interrupts gently. "Mr. Carson and I have reached an understanding." He turns to Carson. "Release her." Carson nods to one of his men, who cuts Elizabeth's bonds. She rubs her wrists, looking between the two men with suspicion. "What understanding?" she demands. "A simple exchange," Carson answers smoothly. "The former Marshal Faulkner for the safety of Oak Hollow. Fair trade, wouldn't you agree?" "No," Elizabeth steps toward Nathaniel. "You can't trust him. He'll honor our agreement." Nathaniel interrupts, his eyes locked on Carson's. "Because he's a businessman, not a butcher." "Aren't you, Carson?" Something like respect flickers in Carson's gaze. "Indeed. Miss Winters, you're free to go." My man will escort you to retrieve your horse. I'm not leaving without you, she tells Nathaniel fiercely. Yes, you are. His voice softens as he takes her hand. Oak Hollow needs you. Thomas needs you. He presses something small and metal into her palm, the key to his trunk. My journal's inside. It contains everything the territorial marshal would need to understand what happened here, just in case. Elizabeth's eyes glisten with unshed tears. This isn't over, she whispers. Not like this. I know. He allows himself one brief touch of her cheek. Go now. Tell Collins the town is safe, but to maintain watches. Carson's word is good, but precautions matter. After a moment's hesitation, she nods. With one last defiant glare at Carson, she allows the gunman to lead her toward where the horses are tethered. Touching, Carson comments when she's out of earshot. Now, your weapons, if you please. Nathaniel removes his gun belt, laying it and the Winchester on a flat rock between them. My 5 minutes with Bradley? Carson checks his pocket watch. It's all yours, boys. Let's give them some privacy. As Carson and his men withdraw to a respectful distance, Bradley begins to tremble visibly. The banker's earlier nervousness has blossomed into full-blown terror. Now, Forge, let's be reasonable, he stammers. I was just doing business. The railroad made an irresistible offer. To betray your neighbors, Nathaniel finishes, advancing slowly, to sell out people who trusted you. It was just business, Bradley insists, backing away until he bumps against a boulder. Nothing personal. It became personal when you involved Elizabeth. Nathaniel's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. When you helped Carson recreate the circumstances that killed my wife and daughter. Bradley's face drains of color. I didn't know about that part. Carson just said he needed leverage against you, something to ensure cooperation, and you suggested Elizabeth. It's not a question. Bradley nods miserably. I noticed how you looked at her, how she looked at you. For a long moment, Nathaniel simply stares at the banker, his expression unreadable. Then, with speed that belies his size, he grabs Bradley by the throat and lifts him until his feet barely touch the ground. Listen. Carefully, Bradley, he whispers, his face inches from the terrified banker's. I'm not going to kill you. That would be too simple. He releases his grip slightly, allowing Bradley to gasp for air. Instead, you're going to sign a confession. Every detail of your arrangement with Carson, every penny you stole, every lie you told. Nathaniel pulls a small notebook and pencil from his pocket. Right now. If I refuse, Bradley chokes out. Nathaniel smiles thinly. Then I'll honor my agreement with Carson by leaving you breathing. Just breathing. His grip tightens momentarily to emphasize the point. The choice is yours. 5 minutes later, Carson returns to find Bradley sitting on a rock, ashen-faced but physically unharmed. Nathaniel stands nearby, tucking a small notebook into his shirt pocket. Disappointing, Carson remarks, glancing at Bradley's unmarked face. I expected more dramatics. I'm not Wallace, Nathaniel responds quietly. No, you're not. Carson gestures to one of his men. Take Mr. Bradley back to camp. Keep him comfortable but secure. As Bradley is led away, Carson turns to Nathaniel. Now then, Marshal, it's time we concluded our business. One moment, Nathaniel reaches into his pocket and withdraws the signed contract. Your signature, as agreed. Carson raises an eyebrow but accepts the document and a proffered pencil. Bracing the paper against his thigh, he signs with a flourish. There, Oak Hollow's future is secure regardless of what happens next. He hands the contract back. Consider it your legacy, and yours, Nathaniel asks, folding the paper carefully. Mine will be restoring justice where the law failed. Carson nods to his men. Secure him. Carefully, this isn't some saddle tramp. As the gunmen move forward with rope, Nathaniel offers no resistance. His eyes remain fixed on Carson, evaluating, measuring. I've waited 20 years for this moment, Carson says, almost conversationally. Imagined it countless times. Yet now that it's here, I find myself curiously unsatisfied. Revenge usually disappoints, Nathaniel replies. That's why I chose a different path. And yet, here we are. Carson studies him as his men bind Nathaniel's hands. I must admit, I expected more of a fight. Would it have changed anything? No, Carson acknowledges, but it would have been more fitting somehow. The legendary silent shot going down in a blaze of glory. Glory is overrated. Lives matter more. Carson nods thoughtfully. A philosophy you developed after Cottonwood Springs, I assume. Convenient timing. Before Nathaniel can respond, hoofbeats approach from the direction Elizabeth departed. Carson's man returns, riding hard, his expression urgent. Problem, boss, he reports, dismounting in a rush. The woman got away, pulled a derringer from her boot when we reached the horses, winged me and took off. He displays a bloody graze on his arm. Carson's composure cracks slightly. You let a school teacher outfox you? He turns to Nathaniel. Your Miss Winters is more resourceful than she appears. You have no idea, Nathaniel replies, a hint of pride in his voice. Carson considers this development, then shrugs. No matter. The agreement stands. She can do nothing to change it now. He glances at the night sky. Dawn approaches. Let's head back to camp. We have much to discuss before your retirement, Marshal. As they prepare to depart, a distant rumble echoes through the gorge, too rhythmic to be thunder, too sustained to be a rockfall. Riders, one of Carson's men warns, drawing his gun. Many of them, coming fast. Carson's eyes narrow. Your townspeople are either very brave or very foolish. Neither, Nathaniel responds, a smile forming despite his bound hands. They're not from Oak Hollow? The rumble grows louder, resolving into the unmistakable sound of many horses at full gallop. From the eastern approach to the gorge, riders appear, at least 20 of them, moving with military precision. Leading them is a man in a distinctive wide-brimmed hat, a silver star catching moonlight on his chest. Beside him rides Elizabeth, pointing toward the plateau. U.S. Marshal Service! A powerful voice calls out, Victor Carson, you're surrounded. Release your prisoner and throw down your weapons. Carson's face contorts with fury as he rounds on. Nathaniel, what have you done? I didn't do anything, Nathaniel answers calmly. But Elizabeth had my journal, remember? And it seems she knew exactly who to show it to. The leader of the approaching force draws rein 30 yards away, his features becoming clear in the pre-dawn light. He's a tall, imposing man with iron-grey hair and the weathered face of someone who's spent decades in the saddle. Marshal Wade Taylor, Nathaniel identifies him. We served together before Cottonwood Springs. Looks like he's brought company. Carson's, and hovers near his gun as he assesses the rapidly deteriorating situation. His two men look to him for direction, clearly outmatched but awaiting orders. This changes nothing, Carson hisses. You can still make a business decision, Nathaniel interrupts. Calculate the odds, Carson. That's what you're good at. For a tense moment, the outcome hangs in the balance. Then, with visible effort, Carson masters himself. He slowly raises his hands. A temporary setback, he says through gritted teeth. The law has failed before. It will again. Perhaps, Nathaniel acknowledges, but not today. As Marshal Taylor and his deputies secure Carson and his men, Elizabeth rushes to Nathaniel's side. Her face is streaked with dust from hard riding, but her eyes shine with triumph. I told you. It wasn't over, she says as she cuts his bonds. I should have known better than to underestimate a schoolteacher, he admits, rubbing his wrists. How did you find Taylor so quickly? I didn't have to find him, she explains. He found me. His posse was already camped 10 miles south of Oak Hollow. They've been tracking Carson for weeks. Marshal Taylor approaches, extending his hand to Nathaniel. "Faulkner, it's been a long time." "It's Forge now," Nathaniel corrects, accepting the handshake. "Nathaniel Forge." Taylor nods in understanding. "Forge it is, then." He glances at the signed contract visible in Nathaniel's shirt pocket. "That what I think it is? Insurance for Oak Hollow," Nathaniel confirms. "Carson signed it in exchange for my surrender." "Smart play." Taylor looks impressed. "We've been building a case against him for months. Railroad fraud, extortion, conspiracy, but we could never catch him in the act." "You have Bradley's confession now," Nathaniel tells him, "and witnesses. As the sky lightens with approaching dawn, Carson is led away in handcuffs, his empire crumbling around him. Before he's taken out of sight, he pauses to look back at Nathaniel. 20 years, he calls. "I waited 20 years. Remember that, Forge. Some debts don't fade with time." "Neither does justice," Marshal Taylor responds, urging him forward. Elizabeth slips her hand into Nathaniel's as they watch Carson disappear down the trail. "Is it over?" she asks quietly. Nathaniel considers the question, feeling the weight of 20 years of running, hiding, and reinvention. The ghost of the silent shot no longer haunts him quite so heavily. "Not entirely," he admits. "But it's a new beginning." As they prepare to return to Oak Hollow, Marshal Taylor approaches with a small wooden box. "Found this among Carson's belongings," he says, offering it to Nathaniel. "Thought you might want it back." Inside the box lies a tarnished marshal's badge, Nathaniel's badge, taken from his home after Anna and Emily's deaths. "Keep it," Nathaniel tells him. "That life is behind me." Taylor studies him thoughtfully. "The territory could use men like you, Forge, men who understand both sides of the law." "I have commitments," Nathaniel replies, glancing at Elizabeth, "a different kind of rebuilding to do." As the first rays of sunlight break over the eastern horizon, they ride toward Oak Hollow, where watchful defenders still man the barricades, unaware that the threat has passed. Ahead lies a future uncertain but full of possibility, a future forged not in silence, but in the community Nathaniel had never expected to find. The legend of the silent shot might live on in whispered stories, but Nathaniel Forge rides toward home. Oak Hollow greets them with a mixture of disbelief and jubilation. The defenders who had been preparing for a dawn assault stare slack-jawed at the procession entering town, Nathaniel and Elizabeth riding side by side, followed by Marshal Taylor and his deputies escorting the handcuffed Carson, Bradley, and their captured men. Sheriff Collins rushes forward, holstering his revolver with a bewildered expression. "What in tarnation happened out there?" "Justice," Nathaniel answers simply. As word spreads through town, people emerge from barricaded buildings. Their expressions shift from tension to confusion to cautious relief. Martha Oakley pushes her way through the gathering crowd, hands on, her hips as she surveys the prisoners. "Well," she declares with satisfaction, "don't that beat all? The mighty Victor Carson, trussed up like a Christmas turkey." Carson's face darkens, but he remains silent, his calculating eyes taking in every detail of the town he'd planned to conquer. Beside him, Bradley keeps his gaze fixed on the ground, unable to meet the accusing stares of his former neighbors. Marshal Taylor dismounts, his authoritative presence drawing attention. "Folks, I'm U.S. Marshal Wade Taylor. These men are in federal custody for numerous crimes, including conspiracy, extortion, and attempted murder." He nods toward the jailhouse. "Sheriff, I'll need to borrow your cells until transport arrives tomorrow." As the prisoners are led away, Thomas breaks from the crowd and runs to Nathaniel, his young face alight with relief and admiration. "You did it, Mr. Forge. You beat them without a big battle." Nathaniel rests a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Not just me, Thomas. Miss Winters deserves most of the credit." Elizabeth shakes her head. "It was Marshal Taylor's investigation that made the difference. He'd been tracking Carson's operation for months. "Don't sell yourself short," Taylor interjects, approaching with long strides. "Your midnight ride with that journal gave us exactly what we needed, timing and location." He turns to address the gathered townspeople. "Ladies and gentlemen, you should know that Miss Winters here rode 15 miles in the dark, alone, to bring us critical information. Without her courage, this might have ended very differently." A chorus of appreciative murmurs ripples through the crowd. Elizabeth blushes at the attention, but stands a little straighter, accepting the recognition with grace. As the initial excitement subsides, practical matters arise. The deputies need accommodations. The captured gang members require feeding and guarding. Messengers must be sent to neighboring settlements to spread the news and recall any reinforcements still en route to Oak Hollow. Through it all, Nathaniel finds himself in an unfamiliar position, not as the silent craftsman working alone, nor as the deadly ghost of his past, but as a central figure in a community that now looks to him with new understanding and respect. Near midday, he retreats to his forge, seeking the familiar comfort of tools and iron. The workshop remains as he left it, projects half completed, specialized ammunition still arranged on his workbench. The trunk containing his past reopened. It feels both familiar and strange, like returning to a childhood home after decades away. "Thought I might find you here." Jacob's voice comes from the doorway. The old man enters, moving with the stiffness that comes from a knight in the saddle. Some habits don't change. Nathaniel smiles faintly, setting aside the horseshoe he'd been absently examining. Old comforts. Jacob settles onto a stool, groaning softly as his joints protest. Confronting the past is exhausting business. Can't imagine doing it. For 20 years. You get used to it. Jacob studies him with wise eyes. Do you, or do you just get better at pretending? Before Nathaniel can respond, Marshal Taylor appears in the doorway, removing his hat as he enters the workshop. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he says, nodding respectfully to Jacob. "Wanted a word with Forge." Jacob rises with a knowing smile. "My old bones need rest anyway. You two have catching up to do." He pats Nathaniel's shoulder as he passes. "Remember what I said, son. Pretending takes more strength than facing." As Jacob departs, Taylor glances around the workshop with appreciation. "Nice setup you've got here. Suits you better than that tent office we had in the territories." "Different life," Nathaniel agrees, gesturing for Taylor to take the vacated. "Stool, is it?" Taylor settles his large frame carefully, placing his hat on the workbench. "I've been following whispers of the silent shot for years, tracking rumors, incidents, a marksman stopping a stagecoach robbery in Colorado without revealing himself, a mysterious rifleman preventing an Apache attack on a settlement near the border, a single shooter ending a cattle war in Wyoming before it began." His steady gaze meets Nathaniel's. Coincidences, all occurring within riding distance of where a certain blacksmith had recently set up shop. Nathaniel remains impassive. "You have an active imagination, Wade?" "Maybe," Taylor shrugs. "Or maybe I know that some men can change their names, their professions, even their mannerisms, but not their core, not what drives them." "What's your point?" Nathaniel asks, though he suspects he already knows. Taylor reaches into his vest and withdraws a folded document. "This is a federal pardon signed by the President himself for all actions taken by U.S. Marshal Nathaniel Faulkner in the line of duty, including Cottonwood Springs." Nathaniel stares at the document, momentarily speechless. "How did you—" "I've spent 5 years building the case," Taylor explains, "tracking down witnesses, collecting evidence of Wallace's crimes and Carson's involvement, proving that what happened at Cottonwood Springs, while unorthodox, was justified under the circumstances." "Why?" Nathaniel asks, making no move to take the pardon. "Because what happened to you was wrong," Taylor says simply. Because the system you served abandoned you when you needed it most. Because Anna and Emily deserved better. At the mention of his wife and daughter, Nathaniel's carefully maintained composure wavers. 20 years of discipline cannot entirely suppress the flash of raw grief that crosses his face. I also brought this, Taylor continues more gently, placing a second item on the workbench, a marshal's badge, newly minted and gleaming in the forge's light. The service needs men who understand justice beyond the letter of the law. Men who've seen both sides. Nathaniel regards the badge with complex emotions. I'm not that man anymore, Wade. Aren't you? Taylor rises, adjusting his gun belt. Carson's been neutralized, but his operation was vast. We've only scratched the surface. Railroad corruption stretches across 3 territories. Innocent people are still at risk. He moves toward the door, pausing before exiting. Think about it. You've built something good here, Forge, but maybe you were meant to build something larger. After Taylor departs, Nathaniel remains motionless, staring at the pardon and badge, the past and a possible future laid before him like diverging trails on a mountainside. Elizabeth finds him there an hour later, still contemplating the items on his workbench. She enters quietly, bringing the scent of wildflowers to the smoke-laden air of the forge. Marshal Taylor told me about the pardon, she says, moving to stand beside him, and the offer. Did he tell you everything else? Nathaniel asks. About Cottonwood Springs? About what I did? He didn't need to. A hand covers his, warm and steady. Jacob filled in the gaps years ago. Nathaniel looks up sharply. Years? A small smile touches her lips. When a mysterious blacksmith arrived in town 5 years ago, barely speaking but possessing unusual skills, Jacob recognized you immediately. He wrote to me before I accepted the teaching position here. Her eyes hold his. I came to Oak Hollow because of you, Nathaniel. Because Jacob thought a school teacher might draw out the man beneath the silence. You knew all this time? He struggles to reconcile this revelation with their countless interactions over the years. I knew there was a good man hiding from his past, she corrects. The details mattered less than the heart I saw beneath the scars. And now that you know the details, now I understand why a man would forge himself anew from tragedy. She glances at the badge. The question is whether that new forging is complete or if there's another shape waiting to emerge. Before he can respond, commotion erupts outside. They emerge from the workshop to find a crowd gathering around a dust-covered rider who's just arrived. The man, barely able to stand after what was clearly a punishing journey, is supported by Collins and one of Taylor's deputies. Wilkinson Ranch, he gasps when he spots Nathaniel. Under attack. Carson's remaining men, at least 20 of them. Frank sent me to warn you. Marshal Taylor pushes through the crowd, his expression grim. When did this start? Dawn, the rider, manages. They hit without warning, burned the south pasture. Frank and his brothers are holed up in the main house, but they can't hold out long. Carson planned this, Nathaniel realizes, exchanging glances with Taylor. A contingency if he was captured. His lieutenant would lead an attack on our allies, drawing us out of town. Or simple revenge, Taylor suggests. Punishment for those who stood against him. Either way, the implications are clear. The Wilkinsons had come to Oak Hollow's aid without hesitation. Now they faced destruction for their loyalty. How many men can you spare? Nathaniel asks Taylor. Half my force at most. I need the rest to guard the prisoners and protect the town. I'll go, Collins volunteers immediately. And Deputy Hawkins. Count. Me in, Jacob adds, his aged voice steady despite his exhaustion. Others step forward, men who had prepared to defend their town now ready to ride to aid their neighbors. Martha Oakley announces that her shotgun and horse are at their disposal. Nathaniel moves to the center of the group. Those who choose to ride should understand the risk. These aren't just hired guns anymore. They're men with nothing to lose. led by someone desperate enough to attack a well-defended ranch in broad daylight. All the more reason the Wilkinsons need help, Martha retorts. They came for us without question. I agree, Nathaniel says, but we go smart, not just brave. He turns to Taylor. How quickly can we organize? 20 minutes, the marshal responds confidently. My men are always ready to ride. As the volunteers disperse to prepare, Elizabeth follows Nathaniel back to his workshop. She watches in silence as he retrieves his gun belt and checks his Colt with practiced efficiency. You're going after them, she says. Not a question. Yes. He lifts the Winchester rifle, inspecting the action. As Nathaniel Forge, or as the silent shot? His hands pause. Does it matter? It matters to you, she answers softly. The man who left here yesterday was consumed by his past. The man who returned this morning seemed free of it. Nathaniel considers her words as he loads cartridges into his belt. Maybe they're not as separate as I thought. Maybe they never were. Then who rides to the Wilkinsons' aid today? He looks up, meeting her concerned gaze. Just a man who knows how to help. She nods, accepting his answer. From a hidden pocket in her skirt, she produces a small object, a polished brass compass. This was my father's, she explains, pressing it into his hand. He always said that no matter how lost you become, there's always a way to find your true north again. His fingers close around the compass, feeling its solid weight. I'll return it to you. See that you do. She straightens his collar with surprising composure. And bring yourself back as well. We have unfinished business, you and I. Outside, the rescue party assembles quickly. 16 riders in all. Taylor and 4 of his deputies, Collins and Hawkins, Jacob, Martha with her fearsome shotgun, and 7 townsmen with varying degrees of experience. All are armed, all determined. Thomas weaves through the horses. Finally, locating Nathaniel. Mr. Forge, he calls, you can't leave without this. He holds up a small leather pouch. Inside are the specialized bullets Nathaniel had crafted the previous day. Hollow points designed for accuracy at extreme distances. Been keeping them safe like you showed me, Thomas explains proudly. Nathaniel accepts the pouch with a nod of appreciation. Good man, Thomas. While we're gone, you'll help guard the town. The boy stands straighter, shoulders squaring. Yes, sir. Me and the other boys have our positions all mapped out, just like you taught us. Remember what matters most, Nathaniel tells him. Not hitting targets, but protecting people. As they prepare to depart, Marshal Taylor rides up beside Nathaniel. One thing bothers me, he says quietly. If Carson arranged this contingency, who's leading it? Reed's dead, and the other lieutenants are in custody. There's always someone willing to step up, Nathaniel replies, checking his saddle cinch, especially when money's involved. True enough, Taylor concedes, but Carson's operation was built on loyalty and fear. His inner circle was small. Who outside that circle would have the authority to command his remaining forces? The question hangs unanswered as they ride out of town, hooves thundering on the packed dirt of the main street. Behind them, Oak Hollow settles into watchful vigilance. Ahead lies the Wilkinson Ranch. 20 miles of hard riding through challenging terrain. They push their mounts as hard as they dare, knowing that every minute could mean the difference between rescue and recovery. Taylor and his deputies ride, with the disciplined precision of lawmen accustomed to urgent pursuits. The townspeople, less experienced but no less determined, follow their lead. Nathaniel rides slightly apart, his mind cycling through scenarios, strategies, contingencies, the familiar calculations of a manhunter coming back with unsettling ease. The weight of Elizabeth's compass in his pocket serves as a tangible reminder of what waits beyond this conflict, of the man he's become rather than the ghost he once was. 2 hours into their journey, they crest a ridge that offers the first view of their destination. Smoke rises from several points around the Wilkinson ranch, burning outbuildings and torched hay bales. The main house, a sturdy two-story structure built partly of stone, appears intact. Through his spyglass, Nathaniel counts at least a dozen. Riders circling the property, occasionally firing toward the house, but maintaining a respectful distance from its defenders' rifles. "They're not trying very hard to overrun the place," Taylor observes, studying the scene through his own glass. "Almost like they're waiting for something, or someone," Nathaniel adds grimly. "Us." The implication settles over the rescue party. The attack on the Wilkinsons wasn't just revenge, it was bait in a trap. "We should split up," Collins suggests. "Approach from multiple directions." Nathaniel nods in agreement. "Marshall, take half. Your men around to the east. Collins, you and the townsmen approach from the west. Stay in the tree line as long as possible." "What about you?" Taylor asks, though his expression suggests he already knows the answer. Nathaniel gestures toward a rocky outcropping overlooking the ranch. "I'll set up there. Provide cover fire while you move in." The silent shot returns. Taylor says quietly, "Just a man who can help," Nathaniel corrects, echoing his words to Elizabeth. As the others prepare to circle around, Jacob sidles his horse alongside Nathaniel's. "I'm coming with you," he announces in a tone that brooks no argument. "These old eyes still know how to spot trouble, even if these old hands shake too much for precise shooting." Nathaniel doesn't waste time arguing. Together, they separate from the main group, following a narrow game trail toward the elevated position. Upon reaching the outcropping, they dismount and secure their horses in a natural hollow, hidden from the view of those below. Nathaniel removes his rifle from its scabbard, along with a small leather case containing his telescopic sight. "You expecting to make shots from this distance?" Jacob asks, eyebrows rising as he calculates the range to the ranch. "Must be 600 yards to the far side." 620, Nathaniel confirms, attaching the sight with practiced efficiency. "Well, within range." Jacob whistles softly. "No wonder they called you a ghost. Most men couldn't even see targets clearly from here, let alone hit them. It's not about extraordinary vision," Nathaniel explains, setting up his position behind a natural notch in the rock. "It's about understanding trajectory, wind, and patience. The gun and bullet do the work. I just aim them properly. Through the powerful sight, the ranch yard comes into sharp focus." Nathaniel can now clearly see the attackers, a motley collection of hard-faced men, some wearing what appear to be makeshift uniforms with railroad company insignias. "Carson's private security force," he murmurs, "turned mercenary without their employer." "Who's leading them?" Jacob asks, scanning with a pair of field glasses. Nathaniel systematically checks each rider, looking for someone giving orders or positioned differently from the others. His search reveals nothing unusual until he shifts his attention to a small rise beyond the main conflict. There, partially concealed by a lightning-struck oak, sits a lone figure on horseback. The distance and positioning make identification difficult, but something about the silhouette tugs at Nathaniel's memory. "There," he indicates, passing Jacob the rifle, "by that dead tree." Jacob squints through the scope. Can't make out much. Fancy coat, keeps checking a pocket watch. He hands the rifle back. "Whoever it is, they're staying well back from the fighting, directing without exposing themselves," Nathaniel observes. "Smart." The distant figure suddenly turns, as if sensing observation, and Nathaniel catches a glimpse of the person's profile. Recognition floods through him, followed immediately by grim understanding. "It can't be," he whispers. "What? Who is it?" Jacob leans forward eagerly. Before Nathaniel can answer, movement below draws his attention. Taylor's group has reached position and begun their advance. Simultaneously, Collins and the townsmen emerge from the western approach. The trap is sprung, but not in the way the attackers anticipated. Caught between Taylor's disciplined lawmen, And the determined defenders of Oak Hollow, with the Wilkinsons firing from the ranch house, the mercenaries find themselves suddenly outflanked. "Time to add our contribution," Nathaniel murmurs, centering his crosshairs on the nearest attacker. The rifle cracks, the sound echoing across the valley. The mercenary drops from his horse without knowing what hit him before the others can identify the source of the shot. Nathaniel fires again and again. 3 men down in less than 30 seconds, each with a single shot. Panic ripples through the remaining attackers. Some wheel their horses toward the perceived threat, only to be cut down by Taylor's advancing deputies. Others break toward the east, directly into Collins' group. Martha Oakley's shotgun booms, unseating 2 riders with a single blast. "They're breaking," Jacob exclaims, watching through his field glasses, "running like scalded cats." But Nathaniel's attention has returned to the distant rise. The lone figure observes the disintegrating attack for several seconds, then abruptly wheels their horse and gallops away. "Cover for me," Nathaniel instructs, thrusting the rifle into Jacob's hands. "I'm going after their leader." "But I can't." "Shoot like—" Jacob's protest dies as Nathaniel is already sliding down from their position, racing toward his tethered horse. Moments later, he's in pursuit, pushing his mount hard across the uneven terrain. The mystery commander has a head start, but Nathaniel knows this land from hunting trips with the Wilkinsons. While the fugitive follows a winding trail around a steep ravine, Nathaniel cuts directly across it, leaping his horse over the narrowest point. The shortcut allows him to close the distance rapidly. As they top a small rise, he can see his quarry. Clearly now, a figure in an expensively tailored riding coat, urging their mount forward with desperate intensity. "Stop!" Nathaniel calls, drawing his Colt. "It's over!" The rider glances back, revealing a face Nathaniel had never expected to see in this context. Elegant features contorted with fury, blonde hair escaping from beneath a fashionable riding hat. "Mrs. Carson," he says, genuine shock coloring his voice. Victor Carson's wife reins her horse sharply, recognizing the futility of continued flight. As Nathaniel approaches cautiously, she draws herself up with remarkable composure for someone facing arrest. "Mr. Forge," she acknowledges coldly. "Or should I say, Marshal Faulkner. I didn't expect to find you leading Carson's men," Nathaniel admits, keeping his revolver trained on her. "Your husband never mentioned your involvement in his operations." A bitter laugh escapes her. "Victor never mentioned many things. The fool thought he was protecting me by keeping me in the background. Little did he know I was the one protecting him, managing details he considered beneath his dignity. Like organizing revenge attacks when plans go awry," Nathaniel surmises. "Contingencies, Mr. Forge. Every successful enterprise needs them." Her chin lifts defiantly. "Victor built his empire, but I secured it. When Wallace became a liability, I arranged his removal. When Bradley's nerve wavered, I strengthened it. The men feared Victor, but they obeyed me. The pieces fall into place with disturbing clarity. You were the power behind Carson all along." "Not behind," she corrects sharply. "Beside, partners in all things." Her hand moves slowly toward her reticule. "Don't," Nathaniel warns, his revolver unwavering. She ignores the warning, her movements deliberate. "Do you know what they took from me at Cottonwood Springs, Marshal? Not just business associates. My brother rode with Wallace." Her hand emerges holding a derringer, a lady's gun, small but deadly at close range. "You killed him with one of your ghost shots. Through the heart," they said. "He never even heard the bullet coming." "Lower the weapon, Mrs. Carson." "Victoria," she insists, the derringer steady in her gloved hand. "At least have the courtesy to use my name when you kill me, as you killed Jonathan." "I'm not here to kill you," Nathaniel responds evenly. "Just To bring you to justice. Justice. The word drips with scorn. Your kind of justice destroyed everything we built. Twice now. Her finger tightens on the trigger. I won't give you the satisfaction of a third time. The Derringers' report is surprisingly loud in the open air. Nathaniel feels the bullet pass close enough to stir his hair as he dives from the saddle. His own shot comes an instant later, a controlled response that strikes Victoria's weapon rather than her hand. She cries out as the Derringer spins away, more from shock than pain. Before she can recover, Nathaniel is on his feet, his revolver trained on her once more. It's over, Victoria, he says quietly, truly over. For a moment, dignity and defiance wore on her features. Then, with a small, resigned nod, she extends, her wrists for the shackles she knows will come. As Nathaniel leads her back toward the ranch, Taylor and a deputy ride out to meet them. The marshal's eyebrows rise at the sight of their captive. Mrs. Carson, he says, surprised. I didn't expect to find you so far from Denver society. Apparently everyone underestimated me, she replies with remarkable composure. A mistake I trust won't be repeated when my case is heard. Taylor takes custody of her, leaving Nathaniel and the deputy to follow at a more leisurely pace. As they ride, the deputy, a young man with an earnest face, glances repeatedly at Nathaniel with poorly disguised awe. Is it true what they say, sir? He finally asks. About Cottonwood Springs? About you making shots at over 1,000 yards? Nathaniel considers the question, feeling the weight of Elizabeth's compass in his pocket. Some of it's true, he admits. Most is exaggeration. The legend of the silent shot was useful in its time, but legends rarely capture the whole truth. And what is the truth, sir? Nathaniel looks ahead to where the Wilkinson Ranch now stands secure, its defenders reunited, the threat neutralized. Beyond lies Oak Hollow, and beyond that whatever future he chooses to forge. The truth, he says quietly, is that no man is just one thing. We're all being shaped by the hammer and anvil of our choices for better or worse. He offers a rare smile to the young lawman. Remember that when they start telling stories about today. As they rejoin the others, Nathaniel finds Jacob waiting, a knowing expression on his weathered face. Found your true north? The old man asks, nodding toward the compass Nathaniel has unconsciously withdrawn from his pocket. Nathaniel glances at the needle, steady and unwavering in its purpose. I think I'm getting closer. In the distance, Oak Hollow awaits, not as a refuge for a ghost avoiding his past, but as a home for a man who has finally reconciled the different metals of his making, a man forged anew, no longer in silence. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.